Welcome back to New Post today, and today let's discuss something with regard to economy. We know that India recently signed an FTA with few European countries, that's Switzerland, Norway, Iceland and Liechtenstein, and apart from that we also had a recent FTA with Australia and UAE. We also know one of the most important new policies of India's EXIM or export import is to diversify its destination for exports and also diversify the region from which it's getting its imports as well, not depending totally on the traditional partners. And this has been a change since COVID-19. Especially India is also trying to be a part of the global supply chain, especially this was the policy of the government of India with regard to Atmanirbhar Bharat and also the PLI scheme, which aimed to make India a very important partner in the global supply chain. Today, let's speak about one other country in Latin American region, that's South America, where India is trying to diversify its trade talks, and now it's at the cusp of signing a free trade agreement, but definitely not now because the election model code of conduct has come into force, and definitely we cannot sign the FTA now, but definitely after once the elections are done, India now aims to sign an FTA with Peru. That will be with the South American country, So we already have a very good trade relation with many of the South American countries and also the Latin American countries. They are our important trade partners. We get a lot of metals, especially gold from Peru. Peru is an important import destination for India's gold, along with Switzerland recently. And now we are trying to reduce the tariffs on both the exports and imports and diversify, and also have a very good solid document or an agreement for trade so that we can have wider market access for not only our goods but also their goods as well. Let's have a quick review of all the insights into what exactly is going on, the discussions, the major points, the major goods that Peru is looking at, major goods that India is looking at, and how far this FTA, why is this so significant, and apart from that, what is the stage at which it is. So the 7th round of talks with regard to Peru, the FTA are going to be held, and we are trying to speed up the talks on the bilateral free trade agreement, which actually got delayed after the COVID-19 pandemic, and we have scheduled a 7th round in the month of April now. So prior to which offer the goods and services lists will be exchanged with both the countries, which will be included in the FTA. Now the proposed FTA in Peru is very significant for India because it seeks to increase its presence in the Latin America and also the South American country. In South America, we have a very good diaspora there. We also have good relations with two regional organizations, which I will be mentioning later. And the countries are in line with the policy decision to diversify the traditional Indian markets. So Peru is especially interested for its higher access to gold for the Indian market. It already accounts for almost 80% of its exports to India, and some other agriculture items like your avocados, your fresh grapes and blueberries as well. Negotiations on gold is actually tricky because already we have good amount of imports coming from Switzerland, but India did not reduce the tariff on the trade with Switzerland, with which we recently signed a free trade agreement with the European Free Trade Agreement bloc comprising Switzerland, Iceland, Norway and Liechtenstein. So this is one of the tricky issues that will be happening. If you look at financial year 2023, the yellow metal accounted for almost $1.8 billion or 80% of India's imports from Peru, according to according to the Indian trade body. And also the import duty on gold in India is 15%, which comprises of basic custom duties of 10%, and we have agriculture development cess of 5%. So we have not reduced the import duties for Switzerland, and therefore this will be a major question with regard to India-Peru, especially with regard to gold, that Peru wants India to reduce the tariff values. Apart from gold, now Peru is also interested in exporting more agriculture items like avocados, grapes and blueberries. The negotiations could decide the scope of such items as well, and India hopes to have a greater market access with regard to traditional items that it is already exporting, like your motor vehicles, your cotton yarn and also the pharmaceutical companies, the pharmaceutical products, which while exploring new opportunities for other products as well. Peru offers a very big market to India, and its products, and it will also be used by Indian businesses to expand their footprint in Latin America as well. Now, as of imports from India, it constitutes less than 2% of Latin American countries' total imports, and therefore we have a huge potential in front of us. The Commerce Department is of a view this offers just 2% of the imports of Latin American countries, offers a huge potential and expansion for India in the Indian Latin American bilateral trade efforts. We are aiming to double the bilateral trade to $100 billion in the coming years. And as of 2022-23, the bilateral trade volume is only just about $3.12 billion. India exports goods worth $865 million to Peru and imports worth goods $2.25 billion from the country as provided by the Commerce Department. And the proposed India-Peru Free Trade Agreement includes chapters of rule of origin, trade and goods, custom procedures, trade facilitation, technical barriers of trade, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, general security exceptions, cooperation, legal institutional issues, dispute settlement if they occur in future, any services, movement of natural persons, trade remedies, and also investment. So India and Latin American countries have a very good relation. We already have very good engagement with two regional bodies, that's CARICOM and your Association of Caribbean States. CARICOM is the Caribbean community, and also we have a good component of outreach with these countries. So let's have a quick review of the trade relation between India and Latin American countries. So in terms of trade, India relies significantly on imports from various key regions like Northeast Asia, West Asia, GCC, ASEAN, and the EU countries. Latin America plays a noteworthy role in India's trade landscape, ranking in the country's 8th largest source and contributing to just 3% of India's total imports. Conversely, a majority of imports in the Latin America comes from North America, Northeast Asia, and Europe, and India accounts for just 2% of Latin American countries' total imports, making it the 9th largest exporter to Latin American countries, therefore opening up doors for a lot of potential for trade. In terms of trade, the LAC represents roughly 3% of India's imports and ranks 8th among the India's import sources. Similarly, India accounts for 2% of Latin American countries' imports and 9th among the Latin American countries' exporting partners. In 2022, the total trade between the two countries was $49 billion. Now, this impressive figure is largely attributed to India's trade with only a handful of countries in the Latin American region, that's Brazil, 30% of imports and 56% of exports, Colombia 12% of imports and 8% of exports, and Argentina 18% and 5% of exports. So these are India largely imports extractive and agriculture products from the Latin American countries. Four basic products that India imports on a large scale are crude and petroleum products, pearls and precious stones and metals, vegetable oils, ores accounting for 86% of India's total imports from the Latin American countries in 2022. Crude oil imports from Venezuela, Mexico, Brazil accounted for 30% of India's total imports from the Latin American countries. Precious metals in 25% of imports from Latin American countries mostly comes from Chile, Peru, Brazil. Soybean and vegetable oil are shipped mostly from Argentina, Brazil. Industrial manufacturers like iron and steel, electronic machinery, organic chemicals, etc. add only to 5% of the value of imports to India from the Latin American countries. Several Latin American countries' exports are often restricted by just one dominant item. So the top imports of Latin American from India, that's from India to these countries, are predominantly motor vehicles, chemical products, organic chemicals, followed by extractive products like mineral fuels, mineral oil, aluminium, iron, steel, among others. And in 2022, the manufactured and extracted materials together accounted for 78% of India's total exports to the Latin American countries. Therefore, India wants to diversify not only the products to this region, but also wants to diversify from the existing merely of 3% of trade to more, and wants to touch almost 100 billion in the coming years. So there's a lot of potential for the export-import from India to these countries, and also from these countries to India, also achieving the goal of diversifying the countries for the EXIM trade of India. So it's a win-win situation for both the countries. Definitely it will be a boost if they include other industries into the trade in India for the local industries, and also pushing your employment opportunities as well, in case the companies who have manufactured these items really offer the benefits to our people in our country. So it's going to be a win-win situation for both India and also improving relations between India and the Latin American countries, mainly Peru as well, a benefit for the Indian diaspora there as well. So this is about the India-Peru Free Trade Agreement. We already have many free trade agreements with many countries on different terms and conditions. Also, they are named very differently. Please have a look at them, and this is one of the major important issues, diversity, especially in EXIM, that's import and export, and also playing a very important role with regard to global trade. Increasing protectionism is the nature of the country's economy worldwide. So at this time, it's India that is actually taking a step forward, where we are signing free trade agreements with many of the countries. But then what we have to keep in mind is the balance of trade. So we have to be benefited along with the countries which participate with that, and it should be a win-win situation. I'll leave it here with these very details for India-Peru FTA. And if you did, please do like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to comment at the end of the video. And I shall see you in my next post. Until then, it's very happy learning.